Hello, listeners. Welcome to yet another episode of Courage Talks. A special episode for me. A guest who's very dear to me. He's the startup founder of one of my earliest portfolio companies. He's gone miles ahead from where I knew him when he started his journey way back in 2018. Without further ado, I'll let Piyush complete his introduction. Welcome, Piyush.
Thank you, Hetal. It's a privilege to be on your podcast. Brief introduction about myself. I have a strong background in finance, having done investment banking at JP Morgan for 4 years in New York, Hong Kong, and London. And I spent a couple of years at BCG in Southeast Asia as a management consultant. By education, I did my undergrad in finance at Wharton and did a master's in public policy at Harvard. And my mission in India is to ensure that nobody will die due to a lack of funds. And I am working on this mission through my company, which is called CarePal Group today. It was Impact Guru at the time Hetal invested in 2018. And thank you, Hetal, for believing in our vision back then. But essentially, we have three businesses. Number one is Impact Guru, which is India's leading healthcare donation crowdfunding platform, which helps patients for critical illness. Number two is CarePal Money, which is a healthcare lending marketplace, particularly helping patients to get loans at a 0% interest for their treatments. And number three is CarePal Secure, which is helping provide healthcare protection such as health benefit and health insurance products to our entire suite of customers, be it patients, donors, as well as the larger set of people who interact with the overall CarePal.
Wow, that's quite phenomenal, and it's always good to catch up with you and get to know the expanded version of the venture which I invested in, and your mission to ensure nobody dies because of lack of funds is quite humbling, I would say, and especially when you talk about a country like India where where millions of people are going through different sets of trauma every year. For you to be able to achieve a mission would probably get you to a level of greatness. And of course, with a mission like that, the word courage becomes quite obvious, right? The whole intent of Courage Talks is my book, Against All Odds, and my father's journey of courage. But Piyush, what does courage mean to you? What's your version of courage? Any role model if you'd like to cite?
I think it's not an easy word to define, but I would say courage in my book would be the ability to pursue your dreams and aspirations without any fear. For me, my role model from a fairly early age on courage was Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, as some of the listeners may know, is one of the greatest Formula One racing drivers who exist. And the reason why I picked him to be my role model when I was a teenager is because he embodied courage in that he was always operating at the limit. Formula One is a sport where people who win or lose, it's in microseconds, not even seconds, on a particular lap. And that means that they have to be on the absolute limit. And even amongst the pack of all the incredible drivers who exist, there was one individual who was hands and shoulders above everybody else, and that was Michael Schumacher. And he lived an extraordinary professional career and won 7 world championships, which was an all-time record. It would be the equivalent of winning 7 World Cups as a cricket player or as a football player. Although I know those World Cups do happen once in 4 years and people have a shorter sports history, but to talk about the scale of the achievement and that courage in terms of Schumacher, it's unfortunate that he had a huge incident after he retired from the sport when he was skiing, which is one of his passions. He has actually been in coma since then. But that also talks about courage, that he has such incredible ability to fight back and to persevere, that even to date, which is I think almost 10 years past that incident, he's still alive and he's still fighting and he never gives up as an individual. So for me, that is a great example of courage, even when this individual is unconscious. And he's a true role model of courage for people all over the world.
Yeah. Well said. Michael has been an idol for me in my childhood days as well. And while we used to just get brief glimpses on television, I have had chance of seeing him from like 10 meters distance at the Noida circuit when I had visited, when the only time the F1 came to India. And of course, I cherish that moment ever. I knew you were a huge football fan. I was not aware that you were tracking F1 as well. No, but you rightly said, Michael is definitely a great example of courage. And it's not just microseconds between winning and losing; it's microseconds away from death all the time. Right? We've seen a couple of very sad and unfortunate deaths on the racetrack as well, and that just goes to show how close they are from death almost every second while they're racing. And yes, it does require a lot of courage. And you rightly said, right? I mean, despite being in coma for the last 10 years, the man is still fighting. And I just pray to God that he can at least see the light of day and get back to a certain degree of normalcy very soon. So Piyush, all that I've known right from the day when I invested in Impact Guru is the real you right now. But why don't you trace us back to childhood? What was childhood days like? जब नन्हे थे तब शरारतें करी थी, or were you the more quiet types? You had to study so hard to be able to make it to Wharton and the Harvard that you eventually did.
Yeah, Hital. So, in terms of my childhood, I was born in Calcutta, where I was there until the third grade. 4th to 6th were in Mumbai, and 7th to 12th were in New Delhi. So it was a childhood where I did shift a few cities, and therefore a lot of change when it came to creating new friendships. I was always fairly studious. I think my parents had instilled in me the value of working hard, and so I was quite studious and academically inclined. I was not very gifted when it came to sports, but towards my ninth onwards, I was encouraged by my teachers as well as by my principal to really take up extracurricular activities, and so that led to a substantial shift towards having a more well-balanced outlook in terms of my achievements. And so I was very fortunate and privileged to be the head boy of the school and to win various awards as Student of the Year. But I think growing up, I was very lucky to spend a lot of time with my grandparents, who were extremely religious and taught me the value of giving, which fundamentally I would say has been really the inspiration to starting this company. My grandfather, in particular, was always a big believer, even though he came from a very humble background, to do whatever you can to help others, no matter what your income level is. And so I think my childhood had lots of ups and downs. My parents had some difficult moments, but overall, I would say I was always focused on academics, and that created a great foundation for getting into a good college. It was definitely not easy, and there are certain things I can't talk about in the public domain. It was definitely a very, very difficult period, particularly from age 13 to age 18. But I don't have any regrets, and I think that was really the foundation, and all of those events and circumstances shaped me into the individual that I am today. So I would not change that from my perspective.
Head boy, Student of the Year, parents to look up to, grandparents to look up to. Lot of stories of courage in your personal life, right? Would you like to cite an incident, maybe from your grandparents' diary or from your parents' diary, some incident which kind of stays with you all along?
Yeah, so I think I come from a middle class background, and I was very lucky to get the support from them to be able to pursue my college education at what is my dream school, which is the Wharton Business School. And even back in 2003, which is when I secured my admission, the fees to fund this education was very, very steep for my family to actually afford. And even in that difficult circumstance, I remember very clearly that even though my parents did not have the full amount of money arranged for, it's a 4-year college education in the US, they only had line of sight to the first year. My mom especially was willing to sell or mortgage her jewelry also if it meant to finance this education. So I remember that very clearly, that I started my college education in the US at University of Pennsylvania, which is where Wharton also is a part of that, without actually having the financing secured the next 4 years. And that is a great example of the kind of courage, the kind of bet that my parents made on me even back then, which I'm sure was actually a defining and transformational moment for my life, because I think that really created the foundation to have diverse experiences in terms of academia, in terms of creating a strong opportunity for me to then start my career. And everything was one after the other in terms of a step. A good college education leads to a good internship, which leads to a good first job, which then leads into a master's opportunity. So it's a whole cascade of events that happened in my life. But the courage to say the education is the most important thing. Whatever we need to do, we will do, but you focus on education. That to me was a very big moment of courage that my parents demonstrated in very, very difficult circumstances for them.
No, I totally agree with you, and quite a bit resonates with my own journey as well. But your grandfather emphasized on the element of giving, and your parents gave so much for your education, and nothing can be a better example. The reason it resonates is, I had plans to do my master's in the US, MS. I was all set to go. I had got my admission in 2 colleges. And the moment I got to know that my dad was planning to mortgage the house for my education, I decided to give up. I was like, that's not a step which I can take. That's going to be a burden which I'll find it very difficult. And plus, my mother wanted me to come back after education was complete. And I was like, there are 2 unrealistic expectations from both these people. Fortunately, I had my MBA admission in hand at Narsi Monji, Bombay. So I was like, it was not that I didn't have any options to choose if I decide not to go abroad, and I picked that up. But the element of giving and Adam Grant's Give and Take has been a huge inspiration for me ever since December 2018 when I read it. And this whole give and take, right? And how there's a ephemeral joy in giving, and I'm sure you're seeing that day in and day out with thousands of patients being supported by another maybe millions of givers who are giving their small micro bits, doing their little bit in terms of helping the patient out as well. And that takes us to our work, takes us to your workplace. And courage is, of course, not an integral element just in our personal life, but even in professional life, right? Any examples which you would like to cite from your work life which stand out as great examples?
Yes, I think we are very fortunate to witness the generosity of millions of people around the world, particularly Indians who are the vast majority of the donors. You'll be surprised to know that over 4 donations take place every minute on Impact Guru today, which at one point during COVID was even 2 donations per second. That's just a absolutely stunning measure to talk about the kind of generosity that people feel in terms of helping others in time of need. Talking about courage, I think it has to start with family, even when it comes to business, because I'm doing this business with my wife as one of the co-founders. We have also Vikas, who is another co-founder. So Khushbu, who is my wife, we both decided to start this business together back in 2014, and we've just about completed a decade. And I think the decision to get a husband and wife to start a business together also requires a lot of courage. While there are a few examples of success, there are countless examples of failure, both in business as well as it leading to failed marriages. And I think we've been able to create a fantastic partnership, in particular because while I have a strategy and finance skill set, she brings a very creative marketing and design skill set, and both of them can complement each other. And so I think in terms of courage, the first thing I do want to talk about at work is, the most important thing, according to at least ChatGPT, is 75% of startups fail because of co-founder conflicts. And it required great courage to start this along with Khushbu. And we've been able to create a fantastic journey so far, and we are just at the beginning. I think in terms of other examples of courage at work, I mean, I have seen some really difficult situations where our website went down and our product and technology team members really figured out some innovative solutions to just reconfigure, restart the servers. They all sound simple things, but to get a lot of complex code live on a different server and to get it working in a very, very seamless manner at a late time at night, sometimes pulling all-nighters, is definitely very, very challenging. I think another example of courage is transferring crores and crores of money. In particular, we've been very fortunate and blessed to fund the world's most expensive drug, which is Zolgan SMA by Novartis, which is a drug to treat a rare disease called spinal muscular atrophy. The amount of money that we needed to wire for our first injection, it was very difficult to get banks and other institutions involved in making Impact Guru work the way we do, understand the quantum and the nature of these fund transfers. And that required a lot of courage. The number of zeros in terms of these wires are staggering. And, it was not easy to get a lot of those things processed. I think on a daily basis, while we have a mission to help people, we do get attached to these families, and unfortunately, we also lose some of them because they are facing cancer, organ transplants, accidents, heart attacks, and medical emergencies. I think for the employees who are on the front line, every day they are speaking to these patient families, they are interacting with them inside the hospital. It takes a lot of courage individually for them to have the same optimism, provide every individual with the same hope that we are there to assist them, and we will do the absolute best that we can through crowdfunding and lending services that we offer, in particularly to patients. It requires a lot of courage to keep on this mission because it's very difficult as you get involved in the stories and to understand the grief that people have and the kind of tragedies they have faced, that they've already lost so much. A lot of them have lost all of their wealth, lost some siblings, lost some family members, and they are fighting against all hopes. It requires a lot of courage to keep on doing that and to talk to 5,000 plus patients every single month. So I think the people who are on the front line of Impact Guru are doing that with a great amount of courage and providing that courage and hope to our customers. We are there in this difficult time, and we will do whatever we can as a institution to help them in this time.
And where you probably might find it hard to hold back your emotion. Any instance of vulnerability where you really had to put up a bold face when things were really going bad?
I think, there are times when, due to the complicated nature of online payments, things do not function. And people make payments and then they do not receive the credit on the campaign page. And people assume that there is something wrong that is actually happening. We've had countless such situations, and please understand that donation is about trust. And it's a very difficult thing to maintain trust, right? Particularly in a country like India, where there is a massive deficit of trust and for good reason. And so when systems do not function the way they are intended to, and sometimes for no fault of ours, when a certain UPI server goes down, a certain banking server goes down, or in the early days of our life, there were serious technology bugs, and if people would make a payment, and that payment was not reflecting, people would assume that something wrong is there with this company's intention. They are doing fraud or cheating people. And we've had many of those situations in the past that we've handled. I think a moment that made me very emotional is when one of the very first patients we funded was a gentleman called Harish Rohra from Hyderabad. This individual had saved a lot of money for his own transplant, and if my memory serves me correctly, his own kidney transplant. But due to some really unfortunate circumstance, his daughter required an emergency liver transplant. And so he used all of his own savings to save his daughter. This was at Apollo. And in this process, he did not have enough money for his own surgery, which we were able to crowdfund successfully way back, I believe, in 2018 or late 2017. And this was one of our first ever success stories in medical crowdfunding. When Harish Rohra himself passed away due to complications well after his surgery, that was a very, very sad moment for us. as somebody who really
That's great.
kickstarted this entire, I would call it, struggling to come up
Mission.
with the right word, this entire movement or mission that
Yeah.
medical crowdfunding can solve people's healthcare problems and save lives. When that individual passed away, that was a very, very emotional moment when I was addressing the entire employees in the town hall. So that was a moment of extreme vulnerability where I was very, very sad that such a thing happened. But we wanted to honor that moment, and we have made sure that we have not looked back since then. And I'm very pleased to share that we've so far helped 50,000 patients approximately through crowdfunding on Impact Guru, and in the process helped a large number of them get crucial life-saving surgeries for various critical illness treatments.
I'm quite touched by the incident that you talked about. And then you talked about trust, and I cannot agree more. I mean, right from my school days where I used to go around collecting cash for HelpAge India, then, as I grew and heard about this company called World Vision, which helps you to fund schooling for kids, this element of doubt has been universal, right? I mean, regardless of whatever the size of check which people are cutting, they always look at first doubt approach, right? First, let me doubt, then I will believe.
Right.
It's never that, okay, take this man, I trust you, and then you might do your checks and balance. But I think the tough way is the only way to go, right? It takes generations to change a generation, right? So maybe it's you are supposed to be the harbor of change from that perspective. The element of risk is pretty critical in all startup journeys, and this is an entrepreneur special podcast. Any particular element of risk which you want to call out? Because obviously taking risk is probably the biggest example of courage, I would say.
I think as entrepreneurs, spending 10, 15 or even often 20 years onto something and not getting the outcome that you desire. A lot of people start companies fairly clueless about the entire process and what it takes to build a very, very large enterprise. And sometimes some really external shocks, COVID was a great example, where you are at the wrong place at the wrong time and for no fault of yours, you basically lose 10, 15, 20 years of hard work, sometimes generations of hard work that families have done. I think so entrepreneurship requires massive amount of courage, in particular because you are expected to continue to move on, even though if you approach 100 investors, 95 of them will say no. 95 of them will tell you why they have said no and explain to you in detail why you will fail. And to be able to continue on with the mission, despite that, learn from their feedback, unquestionably, requires a lot of courage. And we have definitely gone through that journey, where we've had more than our fair share of rejections. I am pretty sure that, 99% of all Indian VCs who have met us have actually rejected us. And here we are 10 years into this journey, continuing to march on our mission. And I believe that it's great to be able to prove them wrong. But, the moment of truth is not today. The moment of truth is 5 to 10 years from now in terms of the final outcome. Yes. As you constantly see, companies go from 10 billion to 0 or 5 billion to 0 or 22 billion to 2 billion. So valuation is not the end goal. I think, are you able to create an enduring, long-term, sustainable enterprise which is creating enough stakeholder value? And are you able to create an institution that lasts? I mean, I think that is where entrepreneurship requires a lot of courage, in particular if you have the vision to create an institution. For people who are doing it for 3 years, 4 years, I think it's a very, very different thing. But if you're mission driven, the way we would like to believe that we are, I think it does require courage to keep going, especially during those tough times, and there are plenty, especially if you're working on an adaptive challenge like solving India's healthcare financing problems.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And not just because I personally have been on the other side of the table in an investor conversation, but because I'm doing a PhD research on this topic. But more importantly, I think what you called out is true. I think the unfortunate reality is that valuations are overhyped in terms of the degree of impact which it can actually create on the strength of a brand. And it's very, very sad that people gauge valuation as a element or a measure of success, when in reality there are so many other parameters which are far more critical. And maybe it's an element of impatience as well in minds of investors, where they are more keen to see what you're doing, what stuff that you're doing, which will reflect on the valuation rather than the fate of the company. And especially when you're doing so much quality work impacting thousands of people, that should definitely be a much larger element of measure of success than valuation or even sales, for that matter, could ever be.
Right.
It's a beautiful journey we've had. A quick few rapid fire questions, if may ask. A book which comes to your mind when you talk about courage.
Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
Wonderful. A favorite player who resonates with courage for you? I know it's a soccer
Cristiano
guy.
Ronaldo. Yeah.
Awesome. I knew that. Any employee which you would like to cite? This is a public platform. Maybe make that employee proud by citing out an employee's example of courage.
I would talk about Vikas,
Not
who
your wife.
is
Not your wife.
yeah, not my wife. Yeah,
Sure.
Vikas Hall is started as a product manager in our company, if I'm not wrong, in late 2017, early 2018, and he's been promoted from that all the way up to co-founder and leading our entire product and technology team successfully, and has made product and technology integral to all aspects of our business and gone above and beyond. So I think in terms of courage specifically, I think the amount of sacrifice and the kind of bold decisions that he has taken along the way. One of them, for example, if we talk about product and tech itself, is look, every startup struggles to hire A+ talent. And if you do attract them, then you think about how long are they going to last. And it took a lot of courage for Vikas to say, we are going to hire different. We are going to give opportunities to a lot of people who are not looked at fundamentally by companies. And we are going to invest in them. We are going to train them. We are going to build great relationships with them. And we are going to ensure that we are going to build a world-class product and tech architecture and products and services for our customers. And we will make utilization of every kind of talent that exists. And it doesn't matter where they went to school, what background they had. I'll give you another mini example. The CTO of the company today is somebody who did not even study engineering in their college education, right? And so it takes courage to trust such individuals to lead the function, and they have all earned it on merit in our company with the demonstrated ability to learn. So Vikas Kaul would be the example that I would think of. I would no longer call him an employee, but he is a co-founder of the CarePal group today.
No, well said. As long as I've seen the startup journey, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to rise to the ranks of a co-founder when you started as a early stage employee of the company. And it goes to show a lot of resilience and, more importantly, the amount of hard work that Vikas has put in. And hats off, great example. Last question. What do you have? What is the question you have for me?
Yeah, I think Hetal, I have a big admirer of your health and fitness regime, and in this conversation prior to the start of the podcast, you told me that your fitness apps are telling you that your age is actually 39 in terms of whatever markers they are reading. So I would like you to share what personally motivates you to be that fit, to do these triathlons, run these marathons, and to stay fit at your age, which is really, really commendable. So if you could share the underlying motivation which allows you to do certain things that I would say 99.999% of people in your age bracket with your background would simply not do.
A great question. First thing, I think the very first run or very first initiative is the toughest. After that, you are setting your own benchmarks, right? Whether it's running a half marathon or running a full marathon, you have created a persona of yourself in your mind, which you're just trying to live up to, right? As long as you're beating your own standards, I think you will automatically attain success. That's point number one. So don't look around too much for idols outside. The energy lies within, the motivation lies within. Second one, I think we've been blessed for the last 8-10 years. The amount of focus and attention towards health and fitness, I mean, even before COVID, is so high that it's like very difficult for me to look living life any other way, right? Whether
Right.
it's in terms of the food habits or in terms of the quantum of focus I have towards fitness. I mean, like, I don't get sleep beyond a certain point of time because I'm so energetic when I'm awake, and I'm looking forward to that phase of the day when I'm going to be active, right?
Right.
That moment of fitness, whether it's 45 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, is probably the best moment for me in the whole day, because that keeps me motivated, that keeps me pumped up. Third is, of course, people like you, right? When you say these nice words, it's not just flattery or buttering for me, right? It's genuine praise, which I feel is also impacting, right? I mean, like 15 minutes back, a friend's son who's more or less been like a mentor. I've been a mentor for him. He messaged me 6 months back. He did his first 10K run, thanks to me, because he was inspired by me at some point of time. And now
Right.
he's improved his 10K timing by almost 15 minutes just
Incredible.
after his second 10K. And
Right.
he's aiming to run the Fuji Marathon end of the year. I'm like,
Wow.
boss, you're just too good, right? And it's instances like these where, without me having coached him or guided him or mentored him, I mean, we just chat informally. I mean, just like you, he's checking my fitness updates on social media, and
Right.
in his mind, he's like, visualize me as a mentor, and he's
Right.
actually delivering. Right? So I think that last part is the one which touches me the most. You're making an impact as far as healthcare as a function is concerned. I'm just doing my bit in terms of fitness, whatever I can do with the near and dear circle that I'm around in. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. Well, continue to inspire us, because you are a great role model on that for us.
Thanks a lot, Piyush. Thanks for the nice words, and it's been phenomenal experience. And I say this almost every second podcast. What I got to know is definitely worth the time we spent together, and continue doing the fabulous work that you're doing. And may you take the number of people impacted from thousands to millions, or maybe billions.
Thank you. Our goal is 1 million by 2030, so we will achieve it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
God
great.
willing.
Great.
Great.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.